Hello, I've got a Jackson's Art parcel, which I'm very excited to open and share with you today. I've had some really good sales from my art collective gallery this month, and so this is a total splurge. I'll quickly run through everything first of all, and then I'll come back to things and look at them in a bit more detail. So first of all, I'd run out of black acrylic paint. For the kind of paintings I've been doing, I've been using Golden's fluid acrylic to do black outlines, but I'm still using the heavy body black acrylic in mixers. I make up the exact colours of acrylic paint that I want and keep them in these tubs. And I've got quite a few darker shades, which include a fair bit of black paint in them. And then this is also a replacement item. It's Gamvar satin varnish, and it can be used over oil and acrylic paint. I tried some of this for the first time not that long ago, and I've been using it on all my acrylic paintings, and I've really liked it. It's easy to use, and I quite like the satin finish. So stocking up on that before I completely run out. And then I couldn't resist this absolutely gorgeous Kuretake Iridori Kabako little travel palette. I've quite fancied this for a while. And I also got another set for a friend's daughter's birthday that's coming up. I've got a couple of tools to try out. This is a Jackson's Art Ohm brush, a 1/2" Studio Synthetic. And I'd seen it being used somewhere and liked how smooth it looked, so I thought I'd give this one a go. And then I got a Sofft tool. I'd seen someone using one of these with a dampened foam end and using it to blend out Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 crayons. I'll try and find where I saw that. I think it was a YouTube video, but I'll try and give them credit if I can find it again. And the thought of using these with Neocolor 2s just really appealed to me for some reason. I've got this Sofft tool, which I use from time to time, but I wanted to try one with a rounder shape. Then I also ordered a few sheets of, let me show you. This is lightweight foam board. And it's a layer of foam sandwiched between 2 sheets of paper. And I use it for mounting pictures in floating frames. I think it just gives more of an interesting look. So I'll just open this one up and show you. So this is a lino cut print, which I made, and hopefully you can see it. But I've got it glued to a mount board backing and then the print. So I just about ran out of my old stuff, and Jackson's Art sells it in lots of different size sheets. And I sell these little framed prints on my craft market and at my art collective gallery. And then, oh my gosh, I am so excited to swatch these out. I have some M.Graham watercolour paints. I recently managed to get hold of some M.Graham gouache paints from eBay and have thoroughly enjoyed using them. And I think it just made me really curious about the M.Graham watercolours as well. And so I bit the bullet and picked out some sets to try out. I didn't actually get these ones from Jackson's Art. These were from Amazon, where they were quite a bit cheaper. You can get the tubes individually from Jackson's Art as well, but it's much more cost effective to buy these small sets. I've also got another set on the way, which is a basics set, but that probably won't be here for another week or so yet. I've only ever had one M.Graham watercolour before, and that's the Quinacridone blue. And I know that this one is crazily pigmented and rich, and that it's also quite a runny paint. Like the Snellier and Magello Mission Gold paints, M.Graham's have got honey in, and I think that keeps them quite soft. So I'm not planning on putting these in regular half pans and using them in my travel palettes. I thought it'd be nice just to make an exclusively M.Graham studio palette. And so I've also bought this empty palette. This is the one I got from Amazon as well. And it's a little bit similar to the Magello palettes, which I really like. So this is my M.Graham gouache palette. And I really do think these palettes are a nice format. I got a slightly bigger one, which holds 24 paints. And you've got the removable mixing palette. And actually, it looks like this one might come out as well. I'm not sure that you'd need to take it out, but just so that you know you can. So I'd ordered 25 paints, but there were 3 duplicates across those, bringing it down to 22 colours. But then I've got the Acrylic blue, so I'd have one space and so I did order one individual extra tube to make it up to 24. And the Scarlet Pyrrole was where I thought I might have a colour gap. So I'll have a play with these in a bit and swatch them out and start making up my palette. And then finally, this is very, very naughty. I did buy some more watercolours. Jackson's were having a sale on Michael Harding watercolour paints. Again, I've got one Michael Harding watercolour, which I really like, the olive green. So I've picked out some additional Michael Harding paints which really appealed to me, and most of which aren't duplicate colours for ones which I've already got. But also I think these might make quite an intriguing limited palette in their own right. So I'm very excited to swatch these out as well. So the colours I picked were a Rose Doré, Turner's Yellow, Moss Green, and then there's my olive green. I've got Lapis Lazuli, which is the Afghan version, Perylene Violet, and then a Burnt Sienna. And I've got a few Burnt Siennas. I've heard really good things about this version, so I was curious to try it out. So although I haven't got your regular red, yellow and blue pigment paints, I still thought it'd be fun to try mixing these. I'll just show you these as well. In my last video I was using some watercolour postcards and making some greetings cards with them. And these were the tins that the watercolour postcards came in, and I'd kind of had them in mind for my Neocolor 2s. So I've transferred them over now, so I'll show you how I've organised them. So the yellow tin has got all my reds, orange, yellows and browns, well, pinks. Then I've got my blue tin with all my blues and purples. And then the green tin is my greens and neutrals. These are from the company Potentate, and they're great because they fit the full length crayons in perfectly. I had the 30 set of Neocolor 2s first of all, which I'd outgrown, and I think this will work quite well. I'm really happy with that. So I'll just try out the Neocolors with this Sofft tool. I've only ever really used this with like pan pastels and soft pastels before. Let's try one of the lovely new special edition colours. This is Caput Mortuum. And then I've wet the foam. Yeah, that's like just a really satisfying way of getting a big area of Neocolor 2s down. So for example, the background in a sketchbook. And because the foam's quite absorbent, that's actually quite dry already. I can touch it. So that's going to be a quicker way, or perhaps a better way in sketchbooks for getting a wash down than with watercolours, which would take a lot longer to dry. And can go over the top nicely. This is one of the other new limited special edition colours. The heliotrope, light heliotrope. Oh, and that's going to fit in one of the tins, which is perfect. And then next I'll try out this little Gansai Tambi set. It's like a lovely textured paper cardboard box. So there's a water brush pen, and then a water-based pigment pen. I don't know what the tip on this is. Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like a rigid tip, but it's got a little bit of flex in it. So you can have the wider and narrower marks with it. I like that. So it says it's water-based, but that doesn't mean it's water-soluble by the looks of it. There's not very much pigment coming away, even though that's not had that long to dry. And now I'll just swatch out these colours. So the Gansai Tambi paints, to my mind, they're kind of somewhere between gouache and watercolour, because they're a little bit more opaque than regular watercolours. This Jackson's art brush is very, very nice to use. Very sharp and kind of soft as well. Let's try this gold. I have actually got some Gansai Tambi metallics, and they're pretty good. I'll let that dry and show you how shimmery it is. Yeah, very nice. So you've got the name of the paints and the number on the bottom. So that's lemon yellow, rose madder, just gold, burnt sienna, indigo, and viridian. So the other Gansai Tambi sets that I've got the very, very popular Art Nouveau set, the kind of muted colours. So you can see from here, the paint doesn't go very deep in the pan. I'm through to the bottom there, but obviously you've got a big surface area, so there is a decent amount of paint in them. And then I've got this Starry Colours set. So the gold in this set, it's not identical to any of these ones. It's probably somewhere between champagne gold and light gold, which I like. I'm not as keen on these more yellowy orangey golds. I did also have the granulating set of Gansai Tambis, but I realised it was a bit bright for the things that I was going to be regularly doing, so I don't have that anymore. I'll just show you this gold. It's not a hugely shiny one, but it's quite a pleasant colour. Just do a couple of mixes with it. So just seeing what kind of darker neutral you can get mixing the burnt sienna and the indigo. It's quite a greeny grey. Just try the Viridian and the Madder. Oh, that's quite a nice neutral. And just see if I can get a more natural looking kind of green. Yeah, that will work. And I think this set was about £13. So I think that's quite a nice little Gansai Tambi starter set for someone wanting to try them out. So now the thing I'm really dying to do is try out these M.Graham paints. I'll take out the repeats first of all. I think there's a Quinacridone rust in the Quinacridone set. Yeah. And then a yellow ochre in the South set. So I'll pop those to one side. So I really wanted to try out the Quinacridone Quintet. I love how transparent and beautiful the Quinacridone paints are. And then I was also really eager to try the Cobalt set. I'm after another Cobalt Violet. And I was really intrigued by this Cerulean Blue Deep. And I've not tried a Cobalt Green before either. And then I also picked out the South set. And there were a couple of colours in here that I was really interested in. One was the neutral tint. I've seen on the Mind of Watercolour video channel the neutral tint paint being talked about really highly as a good mixing colour. And the fact that this one is just made with two transparent paints, the PV19 and PG7. So I'm really curious to try this out mixing. And then I also wanted to try out Viridian. Plus, I think these other three are good mixing colours to have in a palette. And then finally I'd got the Desert Southwest set. So that had the yellow ochre and Quinacridone rust in as well. But I wanted to have a warm yellow to go in my desktop palette. And I really wanted to try out the turquoise. And was curious about the mineral violet as well. And then I've got this mixing set on the way too, which will be useful in particular for a cool yellow. So I'm going to work out an order now for these, but I want to have them in this palette, and I'll leave gaps for the 5 that are still coming, and then I can fill the palette. For the most part, I use the same order of paints which M.Graham use on their colour chart. Almost all of the paints came out of the tubes very soft and well mixed, though the mineral violet came out quite a bit thicker, and the Cobalt Violet had quite a bit of binder separation. I mixed and then spread out the paints a bit with a cocktail stick, and then made a colour chart which will sit in the lid. Obviously the paints haven't dried yet, but you can still tell that the paints are incredibly pigmented and dissolve readily with water. I did the swatching on Canson XL watercolour paper, and I used the new Jackson's Studio synthetic brush. This was an absolute joy to use for this job, and I thoroughly enjoyed swatching these paints out. Not long after I'd finished making the colour chart, there was a knock at the door and the post lady brought the basic set that I'd been waiting for. I'd not been expecting it to arrive this soon though, so I was delighted about that. I added the 4 non-duplicate colours to the palette and swatched those out too. With all of the swatchings, because the paints are so pigmented, I was quite careful to put down a fairly watery layer to start with, so that it wouldn't just be solid pigment. But I want to make sure I haven't given the false impression that they don't have a high pigment load, because they absolutely do. So I've put my palette together now, and here's my colour chart. There's a few granulating paints, though they don't seem to be very strong granulating versions of those pigments. Most of the paints I chose are single pigment paints, except for the nickel quinacridone gold, the mineral violet, the turquoise, the sap green and the neutral tint. And I'm excited to do some more with them, but I'll leave that for a separate video. And then the last thing I'll look at briefly are these Michael Harding watercolours. I looked at some videos online where Michael Harding watercolours were being swatched out, and I kind of made a short list of the ones that I was really interested in. And it just so happened that they made quite a nice rainbow of colours. I think I'm going to squeeze these into half pans and I'll pop them into my little Roman Schmall empty palette that I've got. So the first one is Rose Dorée. I've got Winsor & Newton's Rose Dorée, and it's quite low tinting strength, but it's quite a nice delicate colour. And I was just really curious about this one, because I think that the Michael Harding paints are a little bit easier to re-wet. And so I'm curious to see what the Rose Dorée is like when it's dried in the pan. Sorry, I haven't really worked out what I'm doing here. It seems like I've automatically done a circle, so I guess I'm swatching circles. That's better. And this is a mixture of PY97 and PV19. And that's the same as the Winsor & Newton Rose Dorée. In fact, let's just do a little swatch alongside it. I think the Winsor & Newton one is kind of more orangey than this one. Or maybe it's just less pigmented. The Winsor & Newton one is definitely more milky. Feels like it's got more binder in. But I can't really compare accurately until it's dried in the pan. Then another colour that I was interested in was Turner's Yellow. And I don't know if I've ever bought a yellow that wasn't in a set. Yellows just don't appeal to me that much, but this one seemed to have a real, I don't know, gentleness about it and warmth about it that appealed to me. And this is PY216. I'll give them a mix around afterwards. I can't really put my finger on why I like it, but I do. And also it looks like this one's granulating a bit. So it does say that it granulates and semi-opaque. I quite like the information on the Michael Harding tubes actually. So you've got light fastness, excellent. It also gives staining power, medium, granulation and transparency. Then I really liked the look of the moss green. I'm always after my kind of slightly more natural looking greens. And this is PY150, PB29 and PR209. So this is the olive green that I've got. That's PR101, PY180, PB15, 3. It's got that nice brightness about it from the PY150. And it's PB29 in it, so it should have some granulation as well. That looks very pleasant. And then a real treat was the lapis lazuli, which is a natural pigment. And this is a low tinting strength paint. Well, the others that I've tried out are yeah, so it doesn't have as strong tinting strength. It's just such a lovely gentle blue. Then the next one, Peroline Violet, I just fell in love with it the second I saw it. Semi-transparent PV29. It's so pigmented. And then the last one is Burnt Sienna. And I'm very curious to try this one. It's a PR101 and it's transparent. And I do really like to have a more transparent burnt sienna for mixers. Oh yeah. I just like these more orangey transparent ones, and I think this one's granulating as well. Oh, I really like this. My current favourite burnt sienna is Winsor & Newton's. I'll just swatch that alongside. So this is PR101 as well. Yeah, and it's that similar a more orangey version, which is also pretty transparent. But I wonder if when it's dried, the Michael Harding one is going to re-wet that bit more easily than the Winsor & Newton ones. I'll have to see. But I think it's possible this might be my favourite burnt sienna. So I won't pop those in here yet. I need to give these a bit of a mix up, and then I'll stick magnets on them and right on the sides. And then just quickly I'll show you some mixing I did with these. So here we've got the purple from the lapis lazuli and the rose doré. This is the orange from the Turner's yellow and the rose doré. Got this very gentle green with the Turner's yellow and lapis lazuli. This is the neutral from mixing the lapis lazuli and the burnt sienna. And this is the Perylene violet and burnt sienna. Very rich maroon. That was a brown, quite similar to burnt sienna from the rose doré and the green. And then a darker green by mixing the moss green and the burnt sienna. But they all mixed beautifully, although obviously some have got a lower tinting strength than others. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing the new products today. I'm sure I'll be doing more videos on these with some watercolour comparisons across different brands and seeing them in use a bit more. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye!